Welcome back. Let me ask you this. I mean, I've read a lot of that research in the States, and there's big debate about it. Consistently in the United States, we get these horrific cases of people shooting all sorts of people. And you kind of want to say to yourself, for goodness sake, if we got rid of these guns, we wouldn't have this.
No. There's one consistent factor in all of those horrendous mass shootings, and that is that those states have the more restrictive firearm laws, and in fact a school and a school zone, the zone around the school, is a gun-free zone. So you can't, a law-abiding person won't take a firearm within 300 feet of a school because it's a felony to do so. It's a federal offence. So the only people that are going to take firearms into that environment are criminals. And
they're not criminals to start with. That's the point.
There's a very strong movement in America supported by teachers to allow teachers to take firearms into school.
That's a shocking thing. I mean, what? They're going to have teachers armed? What do you want teachers with AK-47s?
I think that you must bear in mind that we're talking about the right to protect somebody here. If somebody comes into your house and you ask Adele this very question, can you have a firearm to protect yourself? I've got a very simple answer. If I want to protect myself and my family, I want a firearm. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I've gone through all the hurdles and the hoops and the loops that Norman has mentioned. But I've been deemed to be responsible. Why can I not own a firearm?
Because I'll tell you why. Because until you can show that the advantages of deterrence outweigh the costs, we shouldn't be allowing you.
The evidence is clear in that respect.
How much evidence do we have in this country? Let's leave the states for the side, because I can go through, I've read some of the stuff that you have, and I remain...
Well, we're talking about crime. We're not all of us have mentioned crime in one or other context in this debate. Crime is the problem, not firearms.
All right, so
Barney has said that the problem is that as
how
a society,
should we enforce this now?
Well, we have good laws. And the fundamental problem with this and many of our other laws is the question of enforcement. Look at our criminal justice system. Start at the very bottom where the police do the basic investigation. Take it through the investigation, completion of the docket, presentation to the prosecutor, presentation in court, and then ultimately a judicial officer gets to see the case. By the time it gets to the judicial officer, there are so many flaws and faults and shortcomings in our judicial system that people are walking free who should not be free, who are career criminals. That is what we should be addressing. We should be taking career criminals off the street who use firearms as tools.
We've just had a celebrated case of someone who was not a criminal, who had all sorts of arms, and look what happened. And he was licensed so the system's not working either. There must be many of your owners, well, not many, but there's some of your owners who clearly shouldn't have firearms.
I think if
we can know that because of a celebrated case.
I think if you, well, let's take that celebrated case. The law was not applied there because he had a charge of assault against him prior to being granted a firearm license. He should have been declared unfit in terms of the Firearms Control Act. That provision was not enforced by the police. It's the police's obligation.
Isn't that the answer?
Well,
shouldn't you be joining with Martin and saying, let's enforce this piece of legislation?
We join together because we don't want crime. The only difference is that Adele doesn't want firearms.
Martin, I want her to speak for herself, please. Carry on.
I mean, basically, we know that violence is a complex phenomenon and you need a multi-pronged strategy to it.
Why is what he's saying is wrong?
Well, because, I mean, you need to look at where the firearms are coming from and who's using them. We tend to see kind of illegal guns that move from the legal pool as the only, which I prefer to call
some come from police arms that are stolen.
No, the latest data from Central Firearms Register, which we got last week, is that close on 18,000 weapons are lost and stolen from civilians every single year. Just under 2,000
That's one of the great cases made in the States as well. I realize that,
So loss and theft is key. Now, the SAFA campaign is calling, and the ruling party has also called for a clampdown on illegal weapons. You need to be doing both.
How do you and how is this clampdown going to work, might I ask?
So you need to do a number of things. I would say 3 or 4 key things. You mop up the illegal.
How do you do that?
Through crime intelligence, through special operations, and through firearm amnesties. In 2005, a firearm amnesty yielded just over 100,000 weapons. That's a significant pulling out. The second thing you need to do, and this is a key thing, and this is where the police need to give us the data, is where do illegal guns come from? They were once legally manufactured and most likely licensed either to a cop, to a civilian, to someone in the military. And so you need to be asking the question, is where are those illegal guns coming from? Because your second
And you're
strategy...
saying that 18,000 of them were stolen.
You have to turn off the tap.
Okay, all right.
And we know that it's handguns,
okay.
which is why our focus. So that's where the
Okay,
evidence
I'll come back
is.
to my...
You have to, and then you have to implement the law. It's a good law, and it's been poorly implemented over the last 2 to 3 years. Up until then, it was being implemented well. So something happened 2 or 3 years
You
ago.
implement the law first.
Can I
You
ask you
do
that?
all three
Right.
at the same time.
All right,
All three.
how do we implement the law?
I think we actually begin with making sure that the police are better trained, they are well resourced, and they are better led.
So let me ask you this question then. People have been, I've run these programs for years, and I'm quite sure even before them, certainly from way back west, we've been talking about this precise problem. And we talk about it every year. And you write eloquent columns all the time. And what happens? Why is this not happening?
I think
Where's the blockage?
I think maybe the Senzo Meyiwa thing, murder, may be a tipping point. Because I think I'm getting more and more people becoming very, very vocal about what is happening in the country. I think sometimes we tended to shift it to shy away from talking about crime because we are seen to be anti or bad-mouthing the country. But I think it's actually something that we need to talk about it, and then we need to find solutions. And I think the point is basically that we need a proper diagnosis of the problem in order for us to get the solution. And I think most of the problem has been that the police have not actually been led properly. We've actually got people who are never policemen who are actually now police commissioners. I mean, how do you appoint a social worker to be head of the police?
Norman, I mean, you've listened to this. You're in a unique position because you're running the football sort of campaign, but you're also a silk of many, many years of experience. So you've seen this from all sides. What's your take on, I mean, your association now has got some real moral clout. I mean, isn't this also not just about the gun issue, but about the enforcement issue and putting pressure on the authority to ensure that the police enforce the act, as you were talking about earlier?
They clearly, like Barney has written in many columns, deep social problems. And the aim of the Senzo Meyiwa gun campaign is not, we acknowledge those problems, they're there, but we can't deal with it. So we have to set ourselves very modest objectives, and that the first one is to remove illegal firearms from our society, from all our communities, and we must do that by appealing to all our communities to either turn in illegal firearms through an amnesty process or appeal to their friends, families, colleagues to report illegal firearms to the police so that those who possess it must be arrested.
But without a deterrent, sorry to interrupt you, but without a deterrent, why will that happen in the sort of magnitude that is required? And if it isn't the police to deter, who's going to do the deterrence work?
Well, I think, as you know, there's some eminent former Constitutional Court judges who are patrons of our campaign. And we intend to engage with the Minister of Police, with the National Commission of Police, and with the Security Cluster to, as it were, interrogate the Firearms Control Act and also the Dangerous Weapons Act. I'd be interested to hear, because the Dangerous Weapons Act is also aimed at ensuring that those who own lawful firearms use it for a purpose that is intended. And what I was fascinated about when I looked at the Firearm Control Act is that you actually get given a firearm for self-defense purposes. And there's a provision which says that there must be a reasonable need for you to own such a firearm. Now, what I would like to find out from the National Commission of Police, who is the registrar of firearms, is how do ordinary people persuade or convince the firearm, the designated firearm officer, that they need a firearm for the purposes of
I've got you, Norman. I've got to take a break.
I don't
Norman,
think if
Norman, I've got to take a break. I'm awfully sorry. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
We've got to take a break first.